What's going on, Turd Nerds? Matt here with Operator Mindset, and in today's video we are going to go over 10 flashcards, homemade handwritten flashcards I've compiled from several different study guides and a few review questions out of books, all about facultative ponds. Now, I don't know if you're going to see these, but I do know that the more knowledge you have, the more power you have, and so hopefully in your journey to becoming an operator, becoming a better operator, and as well as your exam journey, testing for these operators licenses, hopefully these questions will give you a point or two on your exam, because you might see them or something very, very close to it. Nonetheless, we really want you to have a greater understanding of the pond process, and the more understanding you have of the processes, the better you'll be able to operate and handle yourself if you ever get put in a situation where you need it. So, that being said, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's get into the video. Alright, question 1. What is the most common type of wastewater pond? The most common type of wastewater pond there is going to be a facultative pond. Facultative ponds are extremely common. They provide very good treatment, and it's important to remember that most ponds being built nowadays are required to be built in sequence, meaning there's different zones or multiple ponds that it has to pass through. Whether that's in a row, it could be parallel, however they are designed for specific communities in mind. But the main thing to remember there is a facultative pond is going to be your most common form of pond treatment regarding wastewater. They are going to be required to be in series, and they also depend a lot on air and detention time in order for proper treatment. Next, what is the primary organism responsible for removing BOD in a wastewater pond? I think this is one they're trying to trick you up on. I'm going to go with bacteria. Bacteria, it's very similar. I've seen questions like this before in the past, trying to trip you up on that activated sludge process. Bacteria are always going to be responsible for the actual treatment part of the treatment. So in your process, whether it's a pond or activated sludge, bacteria are the guys that are responsible for consuming the wastewater and actually putting it through the treatment process. Remember that one. Next, number 3. When will pH be at its lowest in an unaerated facultative pond? Guys, this is a common question I've seen on lots of my study material. Lots of my study guides, I see something like this, and the answer to that is early morning. So during the night, there's no sunlight, okay? And algae that are present in your pond when there's no photosynthesis happening because there's no sunlight, they start going through a process called respiration. And in that process, they're actually reversing what they've been doing all day, and they're using their energy storages. And while they are doing that, they're actually putting off large amounts of carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is mixing with the water, and that's what's actually lowering your pH. So if you're ever asked, when will your pH be at its lowest in an unaerated facultative pond, that unaerated part is key, because that means all your air is coming from photosynthesis during the day. Early morning is the answer. Make sure you remember that one. Number 4. In wastewater pond systems, what is the main gas being produced by the bacteria? Again, we just had a hint from that one. The answer is carbon dioxide. So bacteria, actually the aerobic bacteria that are consuming the oxygen put off through the photosynthesis process, those bacteria consuming the wastewater, that act of breaking down organic material in the wastewater is actually producing carbon dioxide as well. So if you're ever asked the main gas produced in your pond, the answer is going to be carbon dioxide. Number 5. How should a healthy pond with a high DO appear? That answer is going to be green and sparkling. That green color, that algae being in there, that photosynthesis process, the byproduct of the photosynthesis is oxygen. That's what's providing all that oxygen to your water. Number 6. The sudden increase in the amount of algae in a pond is called what? The answer is bloom. So an algae bloom. While facultative ponds do require algae and they are a primary air source, you can't let that algae get a hold of you. Algae is going to be also your number one reason why you're probably busting permit. Whether that's too much algae leaving out through your effluent, causing issues downstream, that's going to make you bust on your TSS. Making sure you're maintaining your pond and keeping up with that algae growth is going to be key to you operating your pond successfully. Number 7, when will DO concentrations be the highest in an unaerated facultative pond? We should be able to piece this one together after answering those first 6. The DO concentrations will be the highest on a bright, sunny day. Yes, I had to glance at the card because I forgot. A bright sunny day. That means the sun is out, it's over that water, there's lots of photosynthesis happening. That photosynthesis is adding so much DO into the water. So on a bright sunny day, that's when you're going to have the highest amount of DO in your pond. In facultative ponds, where does the most of the dissolved oxygen come from? Well, you definitely ought to know this one if you listen to the first few. In an unaerated facultative pond, most of your oxygen is coming from photosynthesis. Again, for the last time hopefully, oxygen is the byproduct of that photosynthesis, and that's what's primarily aerating your pond. Now there's other means of aeration. There's mechanical aeration. There's various kinds of paddle aerators, submerged aerators, surface aerators, all that. That's mechanical aeration. Natural aeration comes from photosynthesis and wind currents. So the wind actually blowing across your pond and disturbing the surface is also going to add DO into the system. But the primary natural resource of O2 is going to come from photosynthesis. Facultative ponds are made up of what 2 layers? The 2 layers I really want you to be familiar with on this one is that top aerobic layer and that bottom anaerobic layer. Now there is a 3rd layer right in the middle. That facultative layer is an anoxic layer. The main 2 though that you really need to remember are going to be that top aerobic layer and that bottom anaerobic layer. No air on bottom, lots of air on top. Last question. What is another name for cyanobacteria? Another common name for the cyanobacteria is blue-green algae. It's important to remember, cyanobacteria, they are not actually algae, even though that's what they're called. They just come off looking that way, right? Cyanobacteria thrives on nitrogen and phosphorus, which as we all know are very, very common in wastewater. So that's why you have the high potential to see it. We really don't want to see a lot of it though, because too much of it or a lot of it can be very toxic and lead to toxins getting into the water, could potentially be harmful for us or other creatures in the environment. So cyanobacteria, also commonly called blue-green algae. And that's it. That's your 10 flashcards. I hope this helps. I hope you can add these flashcards to your arsenal of study material. And as always, maybe you'll catch a point or 2 on the exam. Let us know in the comments any video you'd like to learn more about. We'd love to be able to put out more content that's helpful and educational to you guys in the field. And don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one. Turd Nerd out.